we are talking about the 8 things that you can do to improve your performance in any distance, really. This is going to apply to middle distance running, 1500 meter and 5K for some of these hacks, and a lot of them are going to be even more applicable to the marathon and beyond. So we're talking about 8 things that you can do. Number 1 is your pacing. Now, pacing in your race is really important. We've talked about it a lot on these Q&As. I have many videos on them on YouTube, and pacing is so important because you can do a whole lot of training. Let's say that you're a 4-hour marathoner and you want to get to a 3:30. Well, how do we do that? We can get you more fit, 30 minutes more fit, but that's the hardest way to do it. Go ahead and do it. But we can also do a number of things with your health, and we can do a number of things with your tactics on race day. So one of the main tactics, the thing that'll move the needle quickest for you, is your pacing. Now, this is not going to be a masterclass on pacing. We just did an entire training on a pacing masterclass on our last call here. But this is a reminder that if you're not running an even split or a negative split or a positive split, but not by more than about 2%, if that's not what you're doing in your races, then that is how you improve your times the quickest. It's instantaneous. It's just on race day. It has nothing to do with your fitness and everything to do with your ability to execute on a good race. So I want you to go in and look at your pacing from your last race. Now, this applies to the marathon, but it applies to the 5K, the 10K, even the ultra distances, which when they get really long, the pacing becomes a little bit different because you may have to sleep and certain things like that. But in the marathon, pacing is so important. So if you're not already doing that, if you're not pacing evenly, and most people are not, it is really high level to be able to do that. Go in and see by how much are you positive splitting or negative splitting. If you are, good job. And I want you to just go out slower in your race. Take some humility, go easy, take a walking break if you need, but just go out slower at the beginning. You will run so much faster. About every minute that you go out too fast in your first half is gonna cost you about 2, maybe more minutes on your back half. So that's number 1. Number 2 is your diet. Diet is really important when it comes to your long-term development. But what we're talking about here are things that you can do right leading up to your race, the week of your race, and even on race day. So a number of things that you can do are in the 7 days leading up to your race, you can consume things that will improve your delayed onset muscle soreness and improve your race time. Now, what are these foods? I've got videos on these as well, breaking each one down into detail, but the cliff notes are you want to eat watermelon and spinach. Now, there's more to that, of course. The research has been done very well on bikers doing time trials to exhaustion and eating spinach and eating watermelon. And here's what they found, in short, is that watermelon is one of the best things that you can use for increasing your performance. Spinach is one of the best things you can do to increase the recovery after your race. It decreases delayed onset muscle soreness. Now, in the research that was done on this with bikers, they split them into different groups. There was a control group that didn't have spinach. There was a group that had spinach just before, I don't know, maybe a couple hours before the time trial. There was a group that had spinach in the 3 days leading up to the time trial. And there was a group that had spinach every day for 7 days leading into the time trial. Now, those progressively had better and better and better results with delayed onset muscle soreness, meaning the more that you incorporate these kinds of foods into your diet on a daily basis, but certainly leading into your race, the better recovery you're going to have, the better performance that you're going to have. Now, it's not just spinach. There's also really great research on this with watercress. And it's not that these foods are special, it's that they're all special. They are dark, leafy greens that are eaten raw. They improve nitric oxide, which is when you eat the greens, it mixes in your mouth with the bacteria, it goes into your stomach, into your small intestine, boom, we produce nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is really important. It helps to dilate the blood vessels and your arteries. Therefore, you can deliver more blood. So this is one of the many reasons, but we're gonna go quick here and just give you the actual things that you can do, and you can dive deeper into them on our other videos if you want. So there are other reasons why you may want to improve your diet. You can lose weight. Now, if you lose weight through a holistic change in your diet, that's cool, perhaps, but even leading up to your race, in the days leading up to it, you can improve your weight. Now, we're not talking about, when we say lose weight, we think of losing body fat. You're not going to lose that much body fat in the 1 day leading up to your race, but you can reduce the amount of weight of food that's in your stomach and in your small intestine, I guess your large intestine too. And how do we do that? We reduce the bulk of food that we have leading into the race. We also reduce the calories that aren't going to be productive for the race, such as high fat. You don't need to fuel with fat for a marathon. You have enough fat on your body. Even the most lean of distance runners has enough fat. Now look, you want high fiber foods in your diet. This is very important. But immediately leading into your race, you can elect for foods that are high in carbohydrate and low in fiber. Now that's kind of a weird thing because it doesn't exist unless you juice. If you make juice, you get the glucose, the fructose, the hydration, the electrolytes, the enzymes, but we're reducing the fiber as well. We're reducing the bulk. So personally, I like to use juice as fuel on the morning of any race, even an ultra. I'm reducing the amount of weight that's in my gut. You might reduce it by a pound or 2, and that's a pound or 2 less that you have to carry, and that's gonna equal 2 or 3 seconds per mile per pound in your race. So it's free time right there. Number 3 is we want you to not have to stop to poop. We're gonna talk about poop here. In a 5K or 10K, likely you probably don't have to stop to use the bathroom. In a marathon, sometimes you do. And if you do, that costs you 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, more, however long it takes you to do that. But how much effort would it take to train to take off 2.5 or 3 minutes from your race? Versus how much effort would it take to just not have to stop and use the portaloo? It's free. And so we can reduce our need to have to poop during a race by also reducing the bulk of food that we eat, not just on race morning, but we can rewind this all the way to dinner the night before. Because the stuff that comes out of you race morning is likely the stuff that you ate the day before, or even 2 days before if your bowel transit time is slow. So the day before the race, you also want to consider having foods that are very easily digestible, fruits and vegetables, maybe some starch, that have the calories that you need, but lower in bulk. So personally, I will again use juice. I will use raw fruit. Now raw fruit has a bigger bulk to it, but it's raw. It'll move through you very quickly if it's not coupled with meat and starch and salt and oil. If you eat it on its own, it will move through you very quickly. You could also have things like starch, like potato, lentils, rice. Now these have much more bulk to them, but they have a lot of fuel for the amount of bulk that they are. So that's number 3 for you. Don't stop to use the bathroom, and here's how you can avoid doing that. Number 4 is you want to stabilize your insulin. When you go out in a race that's that's half marathon or shorter, this doesn't matter as much. But when you start to do distances where you might bonk, hit the wall. Why do we hit the wall? We hit the wall because we run critically low on glycogen. Glycogen is stored in your liver, in your muscles. And when we run very low on that, our body says, can't run out of glycogen. We need this to stay alive and feed our brain. So you have to switch to fat metabolism. And when you do that, you have to slow down because it requires more oxygen to be able to metabolize fat than it does carbohydrate. So what we want to do is we want to stabilize your insulin levels. Now, when you eat anything but race day foods like gels and things like that, it's going to eventually make its way into your blood. So sugar goes up in your blood. And so your body wants to use that sugar for fuel. And so you secrete insulin, and insulin will grab that sugar and pull it into the muscle, and you can use it for fuel. But if your insulin levels are high, then any sugar that gets into your blood is going to be instantly taken out. Now that sounds like a good thing if you had abundant, unlimited free sugar, but we don't. We can only take in so much during the race. So you actually want to teach your body to use a little bit of fat early on so that you conserve the glycogen that you have. And the way that we do this is by making sure that our insulin levels are not high when the gun goes off. How do you do that? Well, you stop eating anything at least 90 minutes, but maybe 2 hours, depends what you eat before the gun goes off. So get up early, have your breakfast, and then sugar will go up, insulin will go up, and then you'll metabolize it. You'll bring it into the muscles, and your insulin will come back to baseline. And then you don't want to eat from about 2 hours before your race until the gun goes off, you're running, and you're going to start mobilizing some glucose and glycogen, and you're going to start raising your insulin. And they're going to hit this nice even level. And that's going to take about 20 minutes or so. So that means don't eat anything from 2 hours before your race through 20 minutes into the race. That nice window right there will allow your insulin to not spike. And you'll conserve more sugar, and you'll be less likely to hit the wall, or you'll hit the wall later. And that's something you can do instantly on race day without changing any training, any tactics. It's just a simple shift. And if you do that, you can run a little bit faster. How much? I don't know. 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It depends on what you've trained your body to do, but it will be an improvement. Number 5 is you want to eat early. Now this ties into some of the other things that we talked about. If you have breakfast early, you stabilize your insulin by the time the gun goes off. You get the food out of your gut, out of your stomach, and at least into the small intestine, so your stomach isn't jostling around and you're less likely to get a side stitch or GI problems or sloshing in your stomach. But it also means eat early the day before the race. Don't have dinner and don't be eating and snacking and having your main meal an hour or two before bed, because you're gonna go to sleep and it's gonna be in your gut. And when you wake up, you're gonna turn digestion back on and you still have to digest it. It's gonna reduce the quality of your sleep and increase how much is in your gut when the gun goes off. So you wanna eat dinner, ideally earlier than you normally would, or at least very early in the day. I would suggest front loading your calories the day before the race. So have a big breakfast, have a big lunch, but do it early, and then taper off your calories as you move towards the end of the day, and just eat light. Maybe have juice, and then that's it. So eat early on race morning and eat early the day before your race. Number 5, here's something that has nothing to do with diet and it's pretty cool. It's your muscular tension. Now, muscular tension refers to not your flexibility of a muscle, but how much literal tension is in the muscle. Imagine that you could put a little screwdriver in there and just ratchet up the tension. Now, why would we want to do that? If your race requires a high amount of muscular tension, and that means that the faster you run, i.e. the shorter your race distance, the higher the muscular tension wants to be for ideal performance. And the longer your race, the lower the muscle tension. Imagine a 100-meter sprinter. They probably have a lot of muscle tension, meaning that their muscles can rebound and contract very quickly. If you had them do a jump rope or a vertical jump, they probably have a lot of power, but a lot of muscular tension. If you take a marathoner or an ultra marathoner and have them, when they're in peak shape, do the same thing, like a vertical jump, they're probably not gonna jump as high. Part of that reason is the tension in the muscles. Now you can change the tension of your muscles. How do you do this? You do it by doing race pace specific exercises. So Bill Rogers, the great marathoner, he won Boston 3 times. He broke the course record. He was one of the great American runners, especially back in the 80s, 70s and 80s. And he said when he's training, his vertical jump is pretty good. But when he's fit for a marathon, he said jokingly, I can't even jump a foot off the ground. So he's breaking the Boston Marathon course record. And he says, I can't jump a foot off the ground. That's interesting. Or is it? Because he knows that his muscular tension should be low for the marathon and it should be high for a 5K or a 7 mile, which he raced a number of times. So if you're a middle distance runner, 1500, 5K, even 10K, you want to tune up your muscular tension. You can do this with plyometric exercises, jump ropes, bounding, skipping, depth jumps, which is jumping down off the box jumps, things that are plyometric in nature. You can also run fast, strides, speed work. If you're a marathoner, you can do that kind of work early on in base and support training. But as you get closer to your race, we want to be running more pace specific, which is actually going to reduce muscular tension, and we want that. So a lot of marathoners, they'll say, I want to sharpen up before my race. And for a marathon, they think that sharpening up is doing mile intervals. That's not sharpening up. It's sharpening up for a mile race, but not for your marathon. And it's going to ratchet up muscular tension when we actually want to be reducing it for the marathon. So let's not do that. If you want to sharpen up for your race, you want to train more specifically for the demands of the race. And for a marathon, that would be lowering muscular tension, getting used to race pace effort, not doing mile intervals the week or two before the race. And number 6 is, here's a really fast way to improve your race time. It's so obvious. Are you ready? Now, this is going to sound like a cheat, but you're not cheating. This is just using your course to your advantage. You can run a downhill race. It's like, duh. And kind of in a way, we think that it's cheating. Well, if I run a downhill race, it doesn't really count. Sure, it does. There's a lot of Boston Marathon qualifying courses that are net downhill, and they certainly count to get your BQ. So if you're 3 minutes short of your BQ, you got a couple options. You could run a flat course and not get your BQ and miss it by 3 minutes, or you could run a downhill course and break your BQ by 3 minutes. Which one would you rather? It's not cheating any more than using a carbon fiber plate in our shoe is cheating. It's just using the tactic of what is legal within qualification and races. So pick a downhill course. So obvious. And even inside of your training course with the Run Elite here, there's like, I have a list of downhill courses, and you can segregate them by like time of the year or geographical location. Just find a fast course. Okay, number 7 is nitric oxide. We already talked about nitric oxide with having spinach or watercress or any dark leafy green. So eat those, because nitric oxide will improve your arteries' ability to dilate and deliver blood flow. Now, this is important for race performance. You can imagine you want to get blood flow where you need it, but it's also important for recovery, because if you want to recover, you got to deliver blood and nutrients and oxygen to your tissues. So we need our ability of our blood vessels to dilate. Now, you can eat these, greens to help with nitric oxide, but we also don't want to do things that inhibit nitric oxide. And what are those foods? The biggest one is oil. The second biggest one is caffeine in coffee. Those two things. Now, oil is going to be the biggest culprit here. And there's some great research. There was a study done in Italy where participants had a blood pressure cuff put on their arm. And they did this with oil and they did it with caffeine. We'll just talk about oil for right now. If they had a breakfast that had oil in it, and they fed them, I believe it was a sausage, egg, and cheese breakfast sandwich. If they had that, when they have the blood pressure cuff, it constricts the blood flow, constricts the arteries. Then they let the blood pressure cuff off, and they measured the arteries in their forearm to see how quickly, so your forearm is dying, there's no blood going to it. Your body wants to, once the pressure is released, to dump blood there and keep tissues alive. So your arteries should dilate. And the people who had the high fat diet, especially the oil, their arteries did not dilate. They were paralyzed. They stayed the same diameter. And so it takes a lot more time to deliver oxygen. They also had a group who ate, I forget exactly what it was, but it was a plant-based, I think it was oatmeal and fruit. I think it was that for breakfast. And when they took the blood pressure cuff off, the artery in their forearm dilated and they dumped blood back into the arm. And so oil will inhibit nitric oxide production, while greens will increase it. So don't you dare have oil on race morning. If you're gonna eat oil, I don't recommend that anyway. And we have other deep dives on that, but certainly really avoid it, especially on race day, race morning. And watch out, because it sneaks into everything. If you have bread or crackers or anything from a package, there's probably oil in it. We want to minimize that, and we want to have a little bit of nitric oxide boosting foods. You can also use beets for this as well, beets or beet greens. But look, if you don't have oil and you instead have beet juice, you just did yourself a great favor. You're going to run better on race day than you would otherwise instantly without changing your training. And finally, number 8 is you can add strides to your training. Now, I'm telling you hacks here that you can use on race day or in race week. So this one is pushing it a little bit, because you don't want to add strides race day unless it's a short race. If you're running a 5K or a 10K, you want strides as part of your warm-up. Don't just do an easy warm-up, do a harder warm-up. And in that case, it will improve your performance immediately on race day. But for a marathon, it's too late. And the week leading into your race, it's also too late. But very quickly, within weeks, within a month, if you start adding strides to your regimen and you haven't been doing them in the past, this is going to move the needle a lot for you. And the runner who I'm pacing here at Cocodona 250, she was an outstanding runner before she came to me. She was running 170 miles per week, but they were all easy, easy 170 miles per week. We kept her mileage the same. We actually reduced it to 140 for a little bit and added 200 strides per week. And she got way better. She broke 50-mile course record. I think she broke 2 50-mile course records, and she broke a 100-mile course record that was held by one of the best in the world. Effective base training is the best thing that you can do long-term and even medium-term. Short-term, give yourself more time to train. But even if you have just a couple of months before your race, you really want to be maximizing base training. And the thing that people tend to neglect in base training is strides. They'll do speed work, so like moderately fast for intervals, but they don't do really short, high volume of pretty dang fast coupled with easy running. So those are 8 hacks that you can use to improve your performance like that from race morning up through the day before the race, the week before the race, and you have a tool that you can use in the multiple weeks before your race.
Thank you so much if you're one of our readers who's got the book and left us an awesome review. But if you haven't yet, go ahead and pick up your copy, Run Elite. It's on Amazon right now. It's on Audible right now. Train and think like the greatest runners of all time. If it weren't for you guys, we wouldn't have even made this. So take care, and thank you for making it a success.